Morning, Les. Oh, see, morning, Les. I jumped the gun this morning.
Boy, you were
I was
really
so,
excited to
I
say
was so anxious to talk to Dr. Arya. I just could not resist saying, hi, Les.
you were my ex-girlfriends.
Oh, God. I'm not going there. Good morning, Dr. Arya.
Good morning, Dr. Hanscom, and good morning, everyone.
So we're going to attempt to talk to you. This is one of the more serious topics in general is about the family because there's such a huge impact on you, your family, society, people you care about. And in chronic pain, it just sort of guts the family joy. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So one factor we keep talking about over and over and over again, I think I can only speak for myself, and I get the impression Dr. Arias had the same deal, is that when we're kids, and even as adults, there's this whole societal pressure to be all that you can be. You can be a pianist, a mountain climber, an athlete. You can do anything, right? And it sounds
Yeah.
good on paper. The trouble is, historically, people have been just trying to survive. The fact we have so many choices is pretty stunning and a huge privilege. So why are we so anxious? Well, one of the issues when they've done research, if you have an equal number of good choices or an equal number of bad choices, there's anxiety. There's as much anxiety in each one of those choices as you can imagine. And so we're overwhelmed with just data in general, including choices. There's no rest for our brains. So what happens, we're all pushed. I'm going to start with the parents because that's where it does start. But society does the
Yeah.
same thing. So you don't look good enough, you're not dressed well enough, you're not strong enough. And guess what? We have a product to fix you. So it's in the marketing world's interest to program us to feel like we're not enough just the way we are. So hence the title of my talk, Be That All You Can Be or Just Be.
Yeah. I
I
really
thought
like
this,
that. David, I really like that because that's the reality is what starts off of trying to guide kids. It really just ends up being something of a bigger problem. A lot of my patients I see with chronic pain and those who struggle with depression, anxiety, and the combinations tend to complain that they're not good enough, that they can't seem to get out of pain. And so what am I doing wrong? And frequently I am met with people who are trying to use the outside world, the way they judge the world, the way they evaluate people, and the way they try to evaluate themselves to push themselves. And it comes back, like you said, family of origin, right? So nothing wrong with that. So I'm glad we are where we are because we got pushed, but sometimes we got pushed beyond that. And it's that criticalness that bridges over into making the nervous system a little bit more heightened and defensive. And then when they have a chronic medical condition, such as chronic pain, they are not able to use the same successes as we've talked about this last week, is to fix the outside world. We try to fix the inside world the same manner. And it's that chronic evaluative part. And Stephen Porges talks about this in the polyvagal theory is when you're chronically evaluating things outside, inside, and what's in between you, it actually keeps you stuck in sympathetic drive, which is your fight or flight, and which is the survival mode. That actually tends to kind of create a lot more chaos than healing.
we also know from this study out of UCLA, Dr. Stephen Cole, is that when you're under chronic stress, it's the chronic low-grade day-to-day stress is what fires up the immune system. And so we
Yeah,
point out that right at the genomic level, right at the expression of your genes, while your genes would pump out these what's called warrior white cells, which destroy blood vessels, they destroy brain cells, they're inflammatory. And under the sustained chronic stress, people get sick. So again, the idea of just settling in, taking care of yourself, your health, your family, trying to go to a safety profile. And you might ask, well, why are we talking about family issues in the context of chronic pain? Because all these things are dramatically magnified in a household where one of the members or more members has chronic pain. So
yeah,
your household, you want it to be of peace, love, and joy. When you're in chronic pain, it's not happening so much. And again, I mentioned the word FOMO, which I learned from my teenagers, is fear of missing out. But there's this huge societal fear of missing out because we're just bombarded. And then within the families, we even do it to each other because we're all programmed this way. So I don't want to be critical of families. I know very few families that don't do this. And I get actually quite a bit of pushback when you say, let your kids be, let them find out who they are, as opposed to deciding for them what they're supposed to do. So
yeah,
there's a lot of parenting advice. I'm not trying to be a parenting advice counselor here this morning because I'm not perfect by any means, but in general, we feel really strongly that the essence of chronic disease is constant low-grade threat in the form of chronic stress. It
Yeah.
changes your body's physiology. I mean, physiology is a sympathetic drive. You just feel anxious, and your
Yeah.
quality of life is not very good when you're feeling anxious. So this idea of actually just being, this is about your family, whatever, you're in pain. Of course, you want to be out of pain. So there's a tremendous, when I was in chronic pain, there's a tremendous fear of missing out because I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this. I became obsessed with people that had more than I did. It was bizarre, but it was
Yeah.
real. Lasted for 5 years.
Yeah, that's the, that's the fear that's created, lack of abundance, lack of, being able to get where we need to. It's that fear of missing out.
Right.
And so let's just pause here for a second. So let's do a quick review. So it really starts from who raised us, that tends to kind of embed our personality and influence it. And I've talked in different presentations and with David too, that when we're exposed to certain types of environment when we're growing up, again, not pointing fingers, but this is where we are, it recalibrates the nervous system and influences our personality. As David and I tease each other, we both have the same inner critics. I wonder why. And
Right.
so, right, let's not go there, David. So
Well,
one
it's
of
a
the
pleasure
things,
not criticize each other every second the way we have these things cooking. You want
they
to
don't know,
start?
they don't know what happens off camera. So,
Right.
right. So one of the things is it starts in the family of origin. We get recalibrated. And what we're trying to show you here is that sometimes when we're trying to heal from chronic medical conditions, again, such as chronic pain, is we're chronically evaluating ourselves. And David points out something very powerful that science has shown us is when you can just be, which means be in the middle of the tornado, you will learn to kind of rewire your circuitries into a state of safety versus threat. When you feel the physical pain, when you feel the strong emotions, when you hear or sense the negative thoughts, trying to fight with it and put it down and is also as if it's you're back in the family of origin, where you've become that person you said you would not be. So it's really important as we pause here to recognize that when you're trying to heal, our past does influence ourselves, but we have choice. And David's message and our message today is this: is just be. Basically means is, can you be good enough? And that's the part where we leave off today is sometimes things need to be just good enough because something I need more, or I need something to change sooner, activates the nervous system. Can you, for just a few seconds, be good enough? Because that helps move you into a state of safety. And we know that for you to heal, you need to feel safe enough.
So I think there's two parts to this, though. So that's what you want to nurture is just being. And I have, we have really tough taskmasters as our inner critics. But the other part is with this expressive writing, the breathing, the forgiveness, the anger. So, we talk about if you're trying just to be to fix these circuits keep spinning. In other words, the voice of not good enough, not good enough, not good enough is not going to go away. And then you project that onto other people. So this just keeps going. So it's irrational. So all the being isn't going to solve that. So there's two things about it. One of them is whether it's writing relaxation to just cut yourself from voices, train yourself to be with them, which is hard because they're coming at you pretty hard.
Yeah.
So that's a learned skill. And then nurturing your life over here and actually be nice to yourself is a different part of the equation.
Yeah, I think, David, one of the things I'm doing in my group right now is walking them through to notice the noticer.
Right.
And it's basically just a fancy term for mindfulness, is to be able to notice when the inner critics go off and for you to notice that, that you're noticing it. It's a very important skill. One of the things I do throughout the day, David, and the audience to let you know is I constantly pay attention to where my thoughts are. Is it in the past? Is it in judgment? Is it in the future? And often the silliest running commentaries, if you listen to it, it's constantly chattering. And I kind of giggle. It's like having a radio.
But Les, what if the commentary is right?
That's the cool. By the way, that's a cool thing. There was a question, and since David brought it up as a funny, but he probably means it seriously, is I don't argue with my thoughts. I ask myself, how helpful is this thought in moving me towards the life that I wish to have, or moving me towards the person I wish to be. So if it's constantly criticizing me, I basically like, well, thanks for your opinion. I try not to take, as David would say, do not personalize pain or anxiety or depression in a sense. It's hard not to, but that's what we're trying to show you is that when you can just be, it's a skill set beyond this conversation. And the things that I would recommend today, David, to our audience is to practice mindfulness as a way of just observing with attitudes of curiosity, acceptance, and non-judgment.
So I'm determined to have the last word today.
Of course.
Here's the last word. So I do want to summarize because we did wander a bit this morning because it's a big topic. But may I summarize what you're saying? Whether you're welcoming in the voice, doing some mindfulness, doing expressive writing, what you're doing, these are irrational circuits, but you're creating space. That's the key issue, right? It all comes down to that one concept of creating space between you and these irrational circuits that are torturing you. So you create the space, then you change directions. Is that a good last word, Dr. Arya? I did it. Did it? All right. See you tomorrow.
Hey, Ron.